Okay, so I think we are now live. So hi everyone, I'm Paul from Refocus Coaching, and I work with dads in business or in leadership positions to help them improve their energy and focus, improve their health, and lose excess body fat in a sustainable way. And I do that after taking my own journey to health in my 40s. And I'm joined today by Karl Muir. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Karl.
Yeah, cheers, Paul. Yeah, I'm Karl Muir. I help people with their digital marketing. So mainly been in the fitness industry for like 20 odd years. So mainly coaches, but also small business owners with like their lead generation, sales funnels and automation. So similar with the sort of nutrition and health side of things, looking after your body. I help people look after their business. So yeah.
Fantastic. Cool. Thanks for that. And thanks for joining me today. So these conversations are with people like yourself to just talk about how you kind of manage your energy and your nutrition and all the rest of it whilst doing all this crazy stuff like juggling a business and looking after a family. And your sort of background is quite interesting because you've come from the sort of fitness and wellness space, and then from that developed this new business that you do. So I'm kind of interested in, you know, thinking back to how you were then and how you are now. What's changed and what sort of things have you maybe had to work on in terms of managing your health and your energy and so on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, funny enough, if you took a step back before the fitness industry, I was actually in the pub trade for 6.5 years. So
okay, wow, that's quite a journey.
Yeah. So it's sort of, I always sort of joke that I went from getting people unhealthy to healthy sort of, overnight. But that's where it started with my own fitness journey, because as you can imagine, like I said, I was sort of managing pubs and I was living in the pub, eating, drinking, obviously what I was selling, and then started going to the gym, and almost like cold turkey, I still remember I lost 2.5 stone in 3 months just
Wow.
from stopping eating and drinking what I was selling. Obviously, like, if you think I'd wake up, go to work at 11, work till 3, burger and chips for lunch or panini and chips for lunch, fall asleep for a couple of hours, go back to work in the evening, finish at like midnight, couple of pints, kebab on a Friday, and that was literally my life for 6.5 years. It was ridiculous. So yeah, then went into the fitness industry, so sort of completely different, and hung around there for 22 years and sort of still technically in it now, but moved into digital marketing about sort of by mistake really about 8 years ago now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. And when did kids come along for you in amongst all that?
So I've got a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. So yeah, so quite a few years ago, I think, like, I remember when Amy was pregnant with Isla, who's a 12-year-old, I was sort of still an avid gym goer and sort of got into shape and stuff like that. But as some people probably know, when you have kids and other commitments, and then another one comes along like 2 years later, that's it. As you can probably tell, my main exercise now is mainly golf. But obviously, it still does the trick with getting out of the house and mental health and stuff like that. But yeah, I must admit, sort of having a strong connection to the fitness industry, and also now I'm getting older, in relation to my golf, I do need to start and think about health and fitness and the gym mainly again. Hopefully improve my golf.
Yes, yeah. Well, and like you said, I think golf is actually really important because I'm always sort of drumming into people about the fact that just simply moving more is actually quite beneficial, and arguably more beneficial than certainly starting up gym. If you're thinking about improving your health, just getting out and moving and walking is a really good thing. So golf is fantastic because you probably rack up 5,000 steps on a round, and you're out, doing your thing, enjoying it, and getting all those other benefits. Maybe some upset and anger at some points when things aren't quite going so right, because it's quite a hard game from all accounts. But yeah, certainly really good for that mental health. And I think there's something really good about just being outside as well. And obviously, you have probably read back in your fitness days about the science that shows that being outside and sort of connecting to nature is actually really beneficial and really positive. And I also think that there's something nice about having a big open horizon in front of you, so that you can, because we sort of live in we built this environment that we live inside of, and we're mostly inside rooms. We're mostly surrounded by buildings. Everything's concrete or artificial. And I'm a big believer in trying to be able to have a big horizon at some point. So either standing on top of a hill, going out playing golf, standing on the beach, and being able to see for a long way. I think there's something quite freeing at sort of a base animal level in terms of doing that. So that golf, you must find that really beneficial. I suspect that's probably some of the best days of the week, isn't it? Is when you're out.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Me and my friends turned 40 in 2020, and up until that point, I didn't actually like golf. I think I tried it when I was 19, 20, I guess, maybe played like once or twice with friends.
Yeah.
And obviously, a round of golf is about 4.5 hours generally. And obviously, back then, when I didn't know what I was doing and my friends weren't very good either, I remember saying to them, like, "Oh, how long does this take?" And they're like, "Oh, about 4 or 5 hours." I was like, "Sod this, I'm going to the pub." So I just had no patience, no like stress, like you said about stress levels with golf. They would have
Yeah.
been sky high. So luckily, I got into it 4 years ago and absolutely addicted. But like you said there, I've never been a runner. Like when I used to go to gym, it was always sort of like free weights and machines and stuff like that, but never sort of cardio. Hated running. But like I said, with regards to the outside, you can see why people do go running or walking. And like, I love walking. We went up Snowdon recently, that sort of thing I like. But like I said, golf, I do about 11,000 steps on a round of golf because it's about 4 hours of
Yeah.
walking. Obviously, and I'm sort of fairly okay at golf. So I do hit the ball straight and I still do 10,000 steps. So, a couple of years ago when I wasn't so good, it was probably about 15,000 when I was zigzagging across the course.
Looking for a ball.
Yeah, that does happen. Touch wood, not as bad these days, but yeah, no, I love it. But like you said, getting out, even in the winter, I hate to say it already because it's only just into September, but in the next couple of months, it's a bit like gloomy, and you don't want to play
Yeah.
in the rain and stuff like that. But as long as I'm still getting out, it's not going to be as often. But like I said, maybe there's something in that sort of the nature comment you said about being out in the open and stuff like that does make it a bit more enjoyable, I think. Because like you said, all gyms, obviously, well, you'd say a large portion of gyms are inside and they haven't
Yeah.
really, they're not even got windows, some of them, like if you think of the sort of budget gyms, because they're in the middle of a shopping centre or whatever these days, you can't even look out a window.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's crazy. It's a shame, isn't it? Really, because that's the environment we've built for ourselves, and yet when you look at
Mm,
it, it doesn't really connect with us on our sort of base kind of animal human level, really, because it's all artificial, isn't it? I mean, they've even gone as far now with like the pelotons and things that there's a screen that shows you where you're cycling or running, and it's like it's like a virtual outdoors thing on a
yeah.
screen. So I know, yeah, I wonder. I've never actually asked anyone or tried it myself whether that actually improves the experience or not. Might be worth finding out about that.
Mm,
Yeah, cool. And one of the things I sort of work on with my clients is kind of I look at like four main pillars of kind of health. So look at nutrition, obviously. I look at movement and exercise. Look at sleep, and then I look at kind of mindset and outlook and how you sort of organize and how you plan. So I guess when your children came along, sleep was something that suddenly became a bit of a struggle. Have you got any kind of, how did you cope with that? Have you got any sort of killer tips, or did you just sort of muscle through it and power through it and just do the best you could?
good question. It's one of those things, isn't it? Like, sort of luckily, for 20 odd years, I've worked for myself. So, sort of my own roles have always been around family time or stuff like that. So, I remember when Isla was younger, like you said, with regards to sleep and stuff like that, Amy was obviously off on maternity leave or paternity leave. Then I was sort of arranging things around being at home and stuff like that. And God, it seems so long ago. So you're bringing up bad memories now, like being sleep deprived and like stuff like that. But it's like with anything, you've got to sort of prioritize. As selfish as it sounds, you've got to prioritize your own sleep and your own exercise, nutrition, hydration, because especially
Mm,
with looking after a child, if you're not looking after yourself properly, how can you look after someone else? And the same with a business, isn't it? If you're not looking after yourself from a mindset point of view and sort of turning up, especially me being self-employed, yourself being self-employed, other people that might watch this back, if you can't sort of look after yourself and turn up to work, then there's a knock-on effect that you can't provide for your company or sorry, company, family. Um, so I think, like again, it was 12 years ago. I can just about remember a couple of weeks ago sometimes, but I think it was sort of just being a bit of a doing a bit of teamwork and, like you said, prioritizing, making sure there's always food on the table. Like if Amy was like, "Sod this, can't be bothered. Like I'm not having dinner." Come on, you need to eat, go
Yeah.
to bed, I'll put Isla to sleep and vice versa. So especially with that sort of thing, it's sort of working together and making sure that you are looking after each other. Because
Yeah.
again, or yourself sometimes a bit selfishly, because if you don't, then you can't function, as we all know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's one of the key points, isn't it? Especially when you've got young children, is having that communication with your partner, maybe setting a bit of a plan or a routine or a rota, and just having each other's backs when things have gone a bit wrong. And because you're right, if you don't build in a little bit of self protection, whether that's planned or with your partner or not, then you end up just sort of running on empty, don't you, all of the time, and then you're
Mm,
suboptimal. You're not, like you said, you're not going to give your best to the kids, to your partner, to your work, to anything really.
yeah,
And if you're sort of stuck in it, it's really difficult. But because you might end up just being sort of snappy and short and not at your best, and you don't even really realize until maybe someone sort of pulls you up and says, "Hang on a minute, you're not really talking in the right sort of frame of mind here."
no,
So yeah, I think it's important to try and build that in a little bit of self preservation. So
yeah.
I want to sort of ask you as well, because obviously with making that transition from the fitness industry and then going into this new kind of work that you're doing now, do you feel like your nutrition are you at an advantage because of the knowledge you had before, or do you feel like it took a hit and you've had to work on anything?
Luckily, I'm tall and slim by nature. Like, I'm 6'2"
Yeah.
and probably about 14, yeah, about 14 stone at the moment, which is probably for me about a stone overweight. Um, but like I said, if it wasn't for playing golf, flipping hell, God, like, because I don't always eat healthy. It's funny, isn't it? Because especially, you get it, and anyone else in the fitness industry always understands that we can't always eat healthy 24/7, just like, when I was personal training, you don't expect your clients to. But then being on the flip side of, being out technically out of the fitness industry and sort of, as you can tell, doing a desk job almost, it is horrible. So even before I come and spoke to you, I was luckily I've got a golf net in my garden, so I was hitting some golf balls. Even just being conscious, I can't sit here. I don't know how people could sit in one place for 8 hours.
Mm,
Obviously, since COVID's come along, I think a lot of work has changed, and maybe health and fitness have sort of become more apparent because of what happened. And again, offices might not work the same way that they used to. But if I'm sitting here for longer than like an hour or so at a time, it's like, no, I need to get up. So I think subconsciously, like,
mm,
while my exercise, nutrition, hydration, even to a point, is not what it should be or what it has been, obviously, quite a few years ago, I am conscious I can't sit here. I need to move. I need to get up. I need to not look at this screen for at least 10, 15 minutes every now and then.
mm.
And I try and eat as healthy as I can. But coming back to the family thing and obviously convenience, it's not always an option. But again, thank God that I'm tall and slim by nature.
Yeah, well, that's nice. That puts you in a nice sort of starting position, doesn't it? But you're right. When especially if someone makes that transition, either from a more active physical job, or I think just as we age, we life becomes a little bit easier. We sort of suss things out. We create more comfort for ourselves or more opportunity to sort of slow down a little bit. And maybe our jobs, because we become more senior in our jobs, there's less out and about and more sort of sitting at a desk. So, and it can kind of creep up on you, although, it sounds daft saying it suddenly, but over a few years, you suddenly feel like, oh, hang on a minute, I'm kind of out of shape, out of breath, feeling a bit squishy. and not feeling great, and it can just sneak up on people. So I think it's a big one. You kind of got to be conscious if you can, and try and, I think I love your idea of kind of getting up and just moving away for 10-15 minutes. I think it's really important. And actually, you know this yourself, the sort of science is clear as well, that if you actually go and move around for a few minutes, it sort of reactivates everything anyway. You get clearer thoughts. You might figure a few problems out because you're not sort of locked into the screen and looking at the problem. It's sort of, moving around just generates that in your body and in your mind as well. So it's really positive. I recently saw something from an old coach that I used to work with. He's got a 20-20-20 rule for when he works on a screen. So he sort of says every 20 minutes, take 20 seconds to look at something 20 meters away. And I kind of like that. It's sort of similar to you just getting up, every hour. Because we just sort of lock into this screen in front of us, don't we? And it's a bright light shining in our eyes, really highly stimulating, and we sort of zone right in, almost tunnel vision. And I find sometimes I get up and I'm kind of blurry and sort of blinking around, wondering what the hell's going on. So it's no surprise really. And I think coupled with that, you're sat, which our body's not really designed to just sit for hours on end, and we suffer because of that. So I think it's really important to get up and get out. And that's a great shout, having the net there. You can literally go. You're sort of almost, getting frustration out. If you've had a bad moment at work, you can go and get something, which is really good.
Yeah, or saying that, or sometimes, like I remember a couple of weeks ago, when for God knows what reason, I just mucked up I was just sort of chipping into net, and it just wasn't going right. So it done the opposite effect. I went outside to de-stress, coming more annoyed that I couldn't hit the ball properly. But generally, and again, we're lucky where we live. We live in a village in Hertfordshire, so basically, if you sort of come out of our house, down a little alleyway, you're in a field. If you walk down the end of our street, across the road, you're in another field.
Yeah.
So we've got a dog as well, so he loves a good old run around. So he has sort of at least half hour twice a day. So that's 2 walks.
Yeah.
Obviously, sitting in here, I try to, again, sort of going back to the whole work thing, I couldn't sit here for 8 hours. So I try and organise my day around like dog walking, picking kids up, taking kids in the evening, dinner. My whole sort of schedule for my week is planned around, like, I've got dinner, I've got all the non-negotiables in there, like kids going to, got to take them to like dance clubs and brownies and stuff like this, dog walk in the morning. And then it's opened up for slots for appointments and client meetings and stuff like that. And even like lunch breaks and stuff like that, because again, I'm conscious that because I'm not as fit and healthy as I once was, like you said there, I cannot sit here staring at this all day. I've got to get up and do something else. And to be honest, a lot of sod's law, because when I'm sitting here sometimes procrastinating, as we all do, anyone that sits at a laptop, especially like working for my own business or doing stuff for client on their content or sales funnels, etc. Sometimes I just need to walk away to clear my head. So what you said a second ago, it's like some of my best ideas come, sod's law, when I'm down the end of the field with the dog. And then I do look at my screen because I have to put a note on my phone, like, email myself, like, think of this when I get back. But again, if like, prime example, last week, I had a large job for a client. It took about sort of 8 to 10 weeks in total, done lots for them. And the deadline was on Friday, and Thursday I was out of the business for the day. But I'm glad I was, because if I just worked that Thursday as well, like, just stuff wasn't coming out of my head. Do you know what I mean? I just had to get away. And then just that one day away from my laptop completely and actually seeing real life people and, walking around and stuff was just a game changer, because I come back, I probably done 2 or 3 days work in half a day, because I was just so clear on, right, do this, this, this. Whereas sometimes when it builds up, as we all know, the pressures get to you and you can't focus. But then again, that, some of that can come down to sort of nutrition and hydration as well. But, mindset, you've got to sort of look after yourself up here mainly, haven't you?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And like you said, I think there's, going back to sort of my 4 pillars, they're all important things. If you work a little bit on each one, then you just sort of lift yourself as a whole. So that's really positive. So yeah, and to your point as well about hydration, that's one thing that we tend to let slip especially if we're locked into that important piece of work. But actually, your brain just functions better if your body's well hydrated as well. So you sort of get that clarity from hydrating properly as well. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, you're lucky as well that, like you said, that position you live in with the fields available. So I think you need to take advantage of that, and also because you've got your own business, you've got that flexibility a little bit to build in those priorities into your schedule, which is really, really positive. Sometimes, I talk to people who have obviously got a 9 to 5 type of job. They're expected to be somewhere for that amount of time, and then it obviously becomes a little bit more tricky. But I think it's worth trying to take the time to make those priorities, because, at the end of the day, if you absolutely had to be somewhere for your kids, you would make it work. So, one could argue that you could absolutely prioritize your, good quality nutrition, bit of exercise and movement and so on, just to protect yourself and help get all the benefits from it as well.
Yeah. But even,
Yeah,
like, just sort of touching on that with the sort of making time for family and stuff, I heard
yeah,
a good stat the other day. I was listening to a talk, it was where I went on Thursday actually. It was sort of like a business festival, um, and one of the speakers there, she like her whole business was getting people to understand their time and use it better, and sort of she's a business coach technically. But
yeah,
one of the things that she said that hit home with a lot of people was the average UK family only spends between 6 and 7 hours a week together.
yeah,
And it's like, if
wow,
you think how many days, sitting at a laptop and, when she said it, we all do it. I'd assume because the kids come home, they do their homework, and then it's like, right, dinner time, we have dinner, then they're back to doing the homework or, some time to watch TV,
yeah,
weekends out with their friends, whatever. But it's sad to think that, we don't prioritize family time. And then
mm,
again, what we come back here with regards to eating better, moving more, and stuff like that, how much time a week do we actually prioritize to those sort of things?
yeah,
Because like I said, family comes first, but then how many days or hours or minutes probably you spend in doing the other stuff? But unfortunately, I suppose it's like a massive juggling act of family, life, business, looking after yourself. And again, going back to what I do in my diary, it's blocked out, like, forever. Like dinner, 5 o'clock, walk the dog this time, it's just not gonna change. And like I said, I have other stuff around that because as soon as you start letting it slip once or twice, that's it, isn't it?
yeah. Well, if it becomes then the habit or the norm, then it's even harder to kind of even recognize that it's happening, and then break out of it. So
Mm,
yeah, that's a shocking stat, isn't it?
yeah,
When you think about it, a whole week for just sort of 6 to 7 hours, that's literally like an hour a day.
yeah,
And yeah, I can see, what, like you're saying, how that could easily come about as well. Yeah, shocking, isn't it?
mm,
I can have a little review of mine, I think,
yeah.
after hearing that.
Yeah, but it's not
And I
like
think,
I said, when someone says it and points it out, like, you might think, "Oh, actually, mine's probably a little bit more, a little bit less," whatever. So it's
yeah,
not sort of pointing fingers, but when someone says it and you think, "Oh my god, I wonder if I added it up, like, what it
yeah,
actually would be."
where would it be?
It's
Yeah, yeah,
I think most people would struggle to have, double figures or, a
yeah.
sort of a day's worth of time over the entire week with their family, but yeah, it's not nice, is it, in this day and age?
Yeah, well, it takes a bit of, I think it takes an actual effort and some intention, doesn't it? So, we've kind of, my partner and I try and put our phones somewhere. So we put them in a different room up on a shelf on silent, because if it's nearby, the temptation is just to pick it up because there's a notification or something's happening.
Yeah,
And that just steals time as well, doesn't it? And steals focus. So
yeah. But even
I
at
think it's
dinner,
really
like,
important.
yeah, similar, like, at dinner time, we just say, "Right, no phones at dinner," like, we sit at a dinner table as well, no phones at dinner table, but the annoying thing is, it's like, "Oh, what's the weather like on such and such day?" "Oh, I'll
Yeah,
look on my phone." It's like,
yeah,
or you ask Alexa, and it's like, "You don't
yeah,
need to look right now, look after dinner." Like, we're sitting here talking. So,
yeah,
yeah, it's just a, and again, obviously, like I said, I'm 44 now, so mobile phones were invented in my lifetime, do you know what I mean? Whereas my kids, they've always had them,
yeah,
and to look up information, to find something out, it's just
yeah.
normal. So sometimes I do feel like, am I being a bit too, like, all
Mm,
fuddy-duddy? Like, don't go on your phone, don't go on your phone. But then, you know,
It's
we've done all right communication wise.
it's a real tricky balance, actually, isn't it? Because I've got a 10-year-old, so we're in that phase where she's asking for one and we're saying no. But you're right; they're just growing up. It's just completely normal, and for
Mm,
them to have instant access to information as well, which we didn't have. You know, we'd have to go and flick through an encyclopedia, or go to the library, or ask, or go to someone's house and ask someone, or do something to go and actually find out, or wait a week for
yeah.
that information.
For an
To,
answer, yeah. Wait for an answer, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But now it's like they can get any, you can pretty much get any answer to anything, anytime, anywhere, basically.
Mm,
So yeah, it's tricky. So those phones are really, they're quite a big distraction. So I think it's important to try, and especially if you're running a business, imagine you either potentially got two phones, one for business, one for personal, or everything's on one device. So the probability of being interrupted by that thing is really high, isn't it? So I think you have to make a
mm,
proper effort and be really intentional with managing that. Yeah,
yeah.
that's a really good point. Yeah. So if you, I was kind of going to ask if you've got, from all your years, either both in the fitness industry or now, have you got like, is there a person or a system or a process that's really been like beneficial to you or influential to you, like, or a book or something that's kind of really helped you to kind of get to where you are and sort of manage yourself now?
Oh, I wouldn't. Oh, good question. I'm not sure. I think it's like anything, like we were just saying a minute ago. You sort of you pick up things, and you sort of, a lot being in sales and marketing, sort of, the digital sort of world. I do sort of pick up on a lot of things that business coaches or mentors and stuff like that are doing. So maybe indirectly, you sort of pick up a few little things.
Mm,
But I suppose also, like if you think back to when I was a personal trainer, I'd gladly train clients back to back from like 6 in the morning till 6 p.m. at night. And,
yeah,
as one turns up, the other would be leaving, like shake hand. "Oh, I'm just going to go to the toilet, quick sort of bit of chicken and rice." And, you know, there was no structure to it because I thought it's just like work, work, work.
yeah,
But, but then was I ever sort of conscious of, like you said, structure, and was I ever looking at other people? Or probably not.
mm,
Um, I suppose when you sort of have your own business or you work for other people, like over the years, whether it's sort of been in the marketing side or like previously, I suppose you can pick up things like that. Again, a company I worked for a little while ago, like was a digital marketing agency, sort of went in as a bit of freelancer, and they had sort of morning huddles where they just sort of sat down, sort of, put a bit of time into a diary to make sure that happens. So I
mm,
suppose structure can come from those sort of things. But with regards to actual, books, or, you know, have I sort of listened to like Joe Wicks, for example, love him or hate him? Have I sort of like followed anything that he says and done this in your life, and this is how you're going to sort of excel? No.
no,
Um, but yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know where I've sort of got my structure from, and whether it's even a good structure. It works for me.
yeah,
But yeah, I think it's just sort of maybe like understanding, like I said before, that I do need to get away from this. I do need to sit and have dinner. I do need to walk the dog. I do need to maybe slow down a little bit, because without that, like I said last week, when I was doing so many hours above and beyond to get a project finished, if it wasn't for that Thursday where I'd sort of booked physically to go somewhere,
yeah,
like God, my head would have exploded, I think.
yeah,
Um, so I think sort of just being conscious that, without sounding lazy, without being conscious to sort of like work too much and
yeah,
push myself too much, because as we all know, that can sort of be a slippery slope
yeah.
to,
It
you
sounds
know,
like you've kind of figured out the balance sort of for yourself. There must be something in the
yeah,
back of your mind there that's just
yeah,
watching, and sort of looking after yourself, because you've sort of, it feels like you've got the balance just about
yeah.
right.
I
Um,
would have loved to answer that when you said about have I read a book, and I've gone, oh yeah, I've read this book and it's taught me X, Y, Z. But
yeah.
yeah,
Well, you're not.
I
I
haven't.
didn't expect you. You don't have to have an answer for that. I mean, it might have been. It might be your neighbour or something.
Yeah,
But it's good that you've kind of. I think you've been conscious about it, and I think that's one of the real keys, is just to kind of
mm,
not let yourself just get sort of in a groove and then never sort of put your head up and see what's going on, or be prepared to listen out for ideas and tips. Because I think, you know, it sounds like you've picked up snippets here and there and everywhere, and you've built your own safety sort of system almost for yourself, and your own,
yeah,
and set your own structure and schedule, which is really good.
mm.
Yeah,
It's an interesting question because again, like without you saying that, I wouldn't have even thought of the structure that I've got in place.
yeah,
Like, 'cause again, I'm very black or white, so it's sort of like, right, dinner, this, dog walk, lunch,
yeah,
golf, it's sort of I put them in first, which sometimes I think, "Oh, am I prioritising that over work?" But, you know, like I said, without it
yeah,
that way round, then the
yeah.
work wouldn't even be happening because
Well,
I'd be
exactly. Yeah, you've absolutely got to come first, haven't you? Because none of that other stuff's going to happen without you being
yeah,
on some kind of form. You've got to be close to on form, haven't you? At least.
mm,
So I think that's really, yeah, really important. And you've created that structure for yourself with your own experience over the years and built in that safety for yourself, which is fantastic. So, yeah,
yeah.
no, that's really good. The only other thing I was going to ask you is about, is there a kind of, have you got any daily non-negotiables, either in terms of your sort of your own health and system, or just the sort of personally how you set yourself up for your day? Is there sort of something that you always deliver on a daily basis?
Um, like I said, dog walks are non-negotiable because otherwise he'll be
Yeah,
just sitting around moaning all day that he hasn't had a dog walk.
yeah,
Um, like we take even though we live in the street where our school is, we always take our youngest. She's 10. She can walk there. She's in year 6 now. She can easily walk there herself, but we still take her to and from school.
yeah,
Um, just those sort of like a few added steps. Other things like structured. Like again, so I'm only thinking this because talking to you, but subconsciously, like have 3 coffees a day, and there's like a cut off of like 2 o'clock, right? That's it. I have my morning
yeah,
coffee, mid-morning, 2 o'clock, bang, done. Because again, absolutely love coffee, but I know anything after that, then that's going to potentially affect my sleep or my mood in the afternoon. Um,
yeah,
so there's like that's a non-negotiable, I suppose. Like 3 coffees a day is my rule. Um,
yeah.
which again I wouldn't have thought of until I was speaking to you, but that is sort of like the cut off.
You
Um,
can write your book after this, Carl.
that's it, yeah. I'm going to go into the mission and go, right, we've got some rules now. Only 3 caffeine drinks a day. You've got to drink 2 liters. We've got to go on dog walks.
Yeah. No, I think, like you said, I think it's you've built all these systems into place. I love the thing about owning a dog. You know, at the start, owning a dog is a lot of work, isn't it? And the potential they've got for wrecking your house is pretty high risk. But they bring you some real structure to your day, whether you intended it or not, because they absolutely want to go out, don't they, and have those
Mhm,
walks. And they'll remind you with those cute, eyes, that they want to do that. So actually, it's a really good kind of tool or strategy to kind of have in place, is that you've got that thing that you're going to do. And when I think about things like that, I always think, like, we're talking earlier about putting your phone down or making time for yourself. When it's a non-negotiable, i.e., you have to take the dog out, you just do it. So why can't you build that in for yourself
mhm.
and your own self-care? You can. It's a matter of making it a priority, I guess, and
Yeah,
popping it on your schedule so that it's a thing that you just do.
yeah, 100%. But even like, sort of sorry to bring it to what I do for a living, but obviously where I sort of help people on the back end of their systems and automate stuff.
Mm,
Obviously, a big word is triggers. So, if someone download a form, it triggers this to do that. And I
yeah,
suppose it's the same with like mental triggers. Like you said, if like walking the dog in the morning, I know, right, I'm going to walk the dog. When I come back, kettle on, while the kettle's boiling, turn on my laptop, grab my coffee in here, you check your emails. And it's all those little
yeah,
triggers that we sort of take for granted, but then I've just gone that one step later after to sort of put that into my diary. So in my diary, like between 9 and 10 is basically admin just to set myself up for the day. So no one
yeah,
can book any calls. Obviously, before that, it's dog walking, school run, etc. So I sort of like to have that structure, and maybe it is. all of this does sort of stem from what I do for clients, but then maybe it does come again, old school personal trainer. I had a paper diary with all my clients written in it and,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I suppose even going back then and then after when I was a personal trainer and went up into gym management, I started delivering personal training qualifications. So again, there was structure to that because I had to make sure that my students were doing their coursework by a certain deadline. And so I
Yes.
suppose, like what you said a minute ago, going back to like subconsciously, maybe I've sort of put in some structure. But like I said, now I suppose it's also something you touched on earlier about mental triggers and stuff. Um, it's just like I said, dog walk equals get home, coffee.
Mm.
Coffee means laptop on. Laptop on means check my emails, and
Yeah.
then it's just sort of that mental checklist to get
Yeah.
me here. Again, I know it makes me sound lazy, but ready to start work at 10 a.m. But it's sort of because everything before that, checking the emails and the admin stuff, I don't see as work. It's sort of like preparing to start work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting when you sort of take a step back and look at it, and I'm actually quite structured, which is quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's probably come from all that time you've spent in those structured environments, and also the work you do now. You have to build structure, don't you? Your systems are fully structured, and there's a logic and a flow to it. So I think
Yeah,
that's probably potentially why you got into that business, because you've got that innate ability inside to structure things in a logical way.
yeah,
Um, and I like I don't know if you've read James Clear's Atomic Habits. It's a massively popular book, and he talks about habit stacking, which is exactly that, like you're
mm,
saying. So walk the dog, come back in, kettle on, then you're doing your emails, and you sort of stack them together, and they just become a normal flow of daily habits and routines.
yeah,
And if you think about someone who's got bad habits, they usually are connected and stacked in some way. There's usually a
mhm,
thing that follows a thing that follows a thing, and they all sort of translate into a negative outcome.
yeah.
So
That's the
it's
thing, isn't
really
it? Like,
interesting.
I listen to audiobooks rather. I cannot read a book to save my life. I'll read
Yeah,
it, and then like 5 pages later, I'm already thinking of something else,
yeah, yeah,
and I'm like scanning it, and I'm like, I did not read a word of that. Whereas I
yeah,
tend to listen to audiobooks because again, on a dog walk in the car, absolutely
yeah,
perfect. Um, I don't know if that's like the best thing to be concentrating on when you're driving, but I find that audiobooks do work well. But something you just said there reminded me about the Atomic Habits, and it is funny, like the other way around, like you said, when it scales out of control, because
yeah,
again, it just made me think of like being in the pub trade, for example. Like I said, I would get up 10:30, quarter to 11, get dressed, walk down the stairs into because I lived in the pub, walk
yeah,
downstairs, work 10 till 3, and I still remember it now, so it must have been a really bad habit. Work 10 till 3, upstairs, said to the chef, "Oh, can I have a panini and chips?" Go in my room, put a video on, not even a DVD, a video,
yeah,
um, watch that, eat some junk, fall asleep, back downstairs, but again, as soon as you finish work, and the last person's out the door, you pour in a pint for yourself because it's like that's the habit. Did I
yeah,
need to have a pint or 3, 4 pints every single night? No. Friday night, the routine was go for a kebab because like 4 or 5 staff would stay, get a kebab on a Friday,
yeah.
and they're the horrible habits, but it's not even like thinking back, did I need a beer or was it just literally that's what you did after work?
Yeah, I think some of it is that is just that routine. It's that habit,
Mm,
and also you're in that environment where everyone's doing the same thing, so you just sort of go with it, and you end up doing a thing, and even later in the day, you might think I really didn't need that third pint, but it just sort
yeah.
of happens because you're in that, yeah, in that crowd, in that routine, and in that habit loop almost.
But
Yeah, it's
even my
fascinating.
friends, yeah, even my friends, we've got a group chat, and I don't drink lager. Like I said, I left the pub trade, what, 20-ish, 22 years ago, maybe. And
Mm,
like I said, when I went cold turkey and lost all that weight, I stopped drinking lager, and still to this day, I don't drink lager. Um, but all my friends, like I said in the group chat, Friday, 5 o'clock, they were like, "Oh, is it beer o'clock yet?" Oh, and like, here's a picture of me having a beer. And I'll just
yeah,
take the mickey, like, here's me with a Coke Zero or a glass of water.
yeah,
But but again, it's like Friday beer because they finished
yeah,
work for the week. They're rewarding themselves with a beer, and
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's
Right.
crazy, isn't it? We've, as modern humans, we've built that system. It's all a made up system that we've created based on our schedule, and
Mm,
it's become, yeah, it's become a habit. People literally just waiting for Friday, aren't they?
yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
break that habit and start some new ones.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, it's been a fantastic chat. We've whittled away for 40 minutes now. It's flown by. So thank you again. If people want to kind of find you and find out a bit more about what you do, and what, you know, where can they find your stuff?
Yeah, so I'm Karl Muir. I am Karl Muir on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, hit me up if you want any help with sort of sales, marketing, or want to talk about golf. Let me know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a few people that have used your services, and your funnels, and your work is fantastic. So I've seen the proof of it, and it definitely is lots of good thing. Your designs as well. I always see your designs pop up on all these platforms, and they're so striking as well. So you're
Yeah,
definitely doing something right.
appreciate that, Paul.
Um,
Thank you.
and yeah, if anyone wants to get in touch with me, then obviously you can do that on LinkedIn as well. And I'm also running my free 5-day coaching event for dads who are thinking about making some changes to those sorts of things we were talking about today, those habits, and don't really know how to start or how to go about it. I'm running a free 5-day event from the 30th of September. So you can sign up on that link that's on the bottom of the page now. It's not a massive commitment, and I give a ton of value in that week. So if anyone's interested in working a little bit more with me, then that's how you do it. So I've not seen any comments or anything or questions pop up, but obviously if anyone wants to drop a question in after, then please do, and we'll get back to you. Just remains to say thanks again, Karl, and catch you soon.
No worries. Cool. Cheers for having me.
Cheers.